Thank you. Welcome. Welcome to our Expanding the Mind series that we started about 2 months back. This is our third installment. We had a first inaugural session by Mohan on the design thinking and critical and deep thinking and design consulting. It was fantastic. Then we have Rama Shastri doing his Chronicles of a Pilgrim. Then we had very rigorous discussion in our group about, I think, various aspects of history and Hinduism. I thought it will be a very interesting time to talk about what I know a little bit about what happened to our history and what was done and what can we do about it. Now, I deliberately chose the topic title as The Plot in Indian Chronology. It is not my wording. As soon as I put the title, there was a lot of controversies already in our discussion groups. This was a book written by one great man, Sri Kota Venkatachalam Garu. This presentation is primarily to reintroduce Sri Kota Venkatachalam Garu work, phenomenal work, to the present generation. Okay. I'm again, for those who don't know me, I'm Sudesh Pillutla. I live in Houston, Texas. So this book, you can easily Google them and find it in freely available, The Plot in Indian Chronology, a fantastic book for anybody to read and know more about what happened in our history. Before we go there, I want to, when we talk about history, these questions always come up. Is history important, okay, for the present and for the future? That reminds me of this quotation by George Orwell. I think he quoted this in 1984, his phenomenal work. Who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past. So the victors who are controlling the present would write our past, and that past project itself to control our own future. I think this is a very good quotation that reflects our Indian state at this time. And again, whenever we say history, always we say, okay, so what, we are great, how does it matter to us? And what does it buy me in the future, right? For that argument, there is no answer, easy answer. History is important, and history will give a direction to the present and definitely a direction to the future, in my opinion. History is definitely not an entitlement for the present, or definitely not for the future. We cannot sit on the laurels of our history to stake claim for our future. Never, ever, we should never do that. But again, history is very important for what it is. If any one of us have a foundation against our father's name or grandfather, or if you're recording our own work for posterity, that means the history is important. In our Hindu religious framework, they gave us how to live properly. That is the essence of Hindu religion is what they call, we have five debts. They call Pancha Yajnas or Pancha Runas. Devarunam, Rushirunam, Pitrurunam, Manusharunam, Jivarunam. Deva is not, you cannot directly translate it to gods. It's primarily for, if you remove the religious symbology of it, it is primarily our indriyas, which is how to lead a good life, a moral and ethical life, do's and don'ts. We have to make sure that we have that obligation to lead a proper life in a society. Then Rushirunam, we have to be in debt with our rishis or the scientists of our past. The only way to pay the debt for scientists is to do swadhyaya, read the scriptures, read their work, be aware of it, see that we propagate it further. Pitruruna. I translate Pitru, though Pitru is our fathers. I translate Pitru as history, our past, our legacy. We have a debt for that. We have to make sure that the contributions of our past generations are acknowledged, celebrated. If we did anything bad, acknowledged and corrected. And of course, Manusha, take care of fellow human being and take care of the animals and the flora and fauna and the nature. So these are all the 5 debts we have in our society. So that's very important. So that's why history is very important. That's what I'm trying to say. And the right history is also very important. Now, who is a proper historian? I quoted this sloka from Raja Tarangani, which is a Kashmiri king's history written by Kalhana. It's also available on the internet. Anybody can download it and read it. It's a fantastic book. One should read it. Historian's duty is to present the truth without emotional attachment and expose falsehoods. That is important of a historian. So I'm not an historian. I'm not a research scholar. I'm a layman like most of us. My interest is to read others' work and internalize them and try to propagate and tell others what I know. That's what we do. Reminds me of another African proverb that until the lions have their own historians, the history of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. I think it's a fantastic quote. Basically, a lion may be great, but we don't know how a lion fought, its greatness, as long as we read the history done by the hunter. Okay, we were once upon a time lions of our civilization, but we were hunted down and have become victims. So even after 75 years of independence, we still do not know how to tell our own story and continue to live in the mental servitude. So today's agenda. What was our history prior to British colonization? We have a history. Right or wrong, we have a history. What was that? It was changed by British. That we know. Why was it changed and how was it changed? And how did Kota Venkatachalam Gauri's work find the blunders that were made by those who changed it? What is the current research in Indian history? Last 10, 15 years, 20 years, tremendous amount of research has been done. I cannot present all of them. Each topic is worth its own presentation. So here I want to give you a flavor of what's happening. And where do we go from there, from here? So once we know at the end of the presentation, what do we do after this? Okay. Let me know if the pace is good, bad, or you need to make me go faster. Okay. There are a couple of key events that are crucial to the story, the plot. That is the Mahabharata War, Mahabharata, and few more events. So if you just go today and Google, and obviously the first link you get is the Wikipedia link. So there it talks about, is recording that? Yeah, it's recording. Yeah.
Yes, it's recording.
Yeah. So just Google them and you will find that the scholarly research suggests that the Mahabharata War happened around 1000 BCE, though the popular tradition says it's 31,000 BCE, 3100 BCE. That's what the Wikipedia entry says. And same Wikipedia entry on about Mahabharata says the bulk of Mahabharata was probably compiled between 3rd century BCE to 3rd century CE. And the oldest probably is not more than 400 BCE. And probably the actual event happened 9th century BCE. That's what the popular today's Googling will give you that. Okay. And there are two important names, heroes and villains of our story today. They are Chandragupta Maurya and Chandragupta I of Gupta dynasty. These two are very important figures, which have made the whole blunder happen.
So, Sudesh, is it a Gupta dynasty or is it the Mauryan dynasty?
So we have a Chandragupta Maurya of Mauryan dynasty.
Yeah.
And we have Chandragupta Gupta of Gupta dynasty.
Gupta dynasty. Okay, you're talking about both of them. Okay.
Yeah. So if the Wikipedia says Chandragupta Maurya is about 321 BC. Okay. And is also known as Androkotos. Okay. And Androkotos in the Greek literature. Okay. He was the founder of Maurya Empire, and he was a Buddhist. Okay, and in Greek Hindu Buddhist, he was, and a lot of accomplishments are given in great texts. And Chandragupta Gupta dynasty is given as 300 AD CE, the Common Era. Okay, post Christ era, and the Gupta dynasty. So this is what the Google Wikipedia says, and they're very important. So Kota Venkatachalam garu wrote this book in 1953, and Kavi Samrat Vishwanath Satyanarayana garu gave a preface to that, introduction to that book, and he wrote, and I highlighted certain comments that Kavi Samrat Vishwanatha made. He says that Gupta Chandragupta, Chandragupta of Gupta dynasty, flourished in 327 BC. See, the Wikipedia says that Chandragupta Maurya flourished in 327 BCE, whereas Chandragupta Gupta flourished in 327 BC. Chandragupta Maurya lived in 1534 BC. But the Western historians wrongly identified Alexander's contemporary with Maurya Chandragupta, because Alexander's date is more or less better known, right? It is 327-24 BC. Okay, that is known, better recorded, more accepted. So that what happened. If you don't correct this mistake, all our literature of Hindu, Jain, Buddhist literature that happened between 1534 BC and 321 BC, the kings of mentioned in the books, the events happened, they all become void. They have no existence. So it's very important that we can't lose that time. And Sir William Jones, in my presentation, I am portraying him as a villain, is the first historian of India. He changed the date to affect a sort of similitude between the biblical and Hindu conceptions of time. Okay, Vishwanatha mentioned it. Later, I'll show his own words, the motive for changing the history. Okay. Briefly about Kota Venkatachalam garu, we should know about him. A, he is a great historian. B, he is from our land, Andhra Pradesh. He was born in 1885 and died in 1959. Sanskrit scholar and historian. He is also mathematics, geography, and astronomy. I think in the latter half of his life, he became a monk, but still continued to lead the active life of writing about history and activism. He wrote 24 volumes, and I listed some of them there. Chronology of Ancient Hindu History, Indian Eras, History of Vikramaditya and Sarivahana, the plot in Indian Chronology, which is the main source for my presentation today, Age of Buddha, Mahabharata War, Kashmir History, Nepal History, Age of Adi Sankara, Andhra, and many more. So today I'm taking that one book, the plot in Indian Chronology. All these books weave a common thread. Okay, if you read all of them, I read not all of them, I read a few of them. They all weave a common thread, but I'm going to present what he's talked about in the plot in Indian Chronology.
Sudesh, where were these books available now?
They were, his grandchildren have published them in printed material. You can't get them on Amazon and all. You can buy them from them. I have their contact with me, or so many of them are available freely on the internet. Okay,
Thank you.
But if you want to contribute to his kids doing something for him, you can buy the printed books. Recently, in last year, there was a WAVES conference in New Delhi. And there they have presented all the 24 volumes. His Kota Venkatachalam Gari's son's daughter, I think, lives in Houston. That's how I got introduced to Kota Venkatachalam Gari work about 10-15 years back. And since then, I've been reading his work. Okay, so we had some references and some sources for our history, like everybody else has. We have Bhagavata Purana, Vishnu Purana, Harivamsa, Bhavishyottara Purana, Kaliyuga Raja Vrittanta. Of course, we have Mahabharata, Ramayana. There are also Itihasas, we have them. The Kachnama, Sindh Gurincho, the history about Sindh, Nepal Rajavamsavali, the Jains literature, Buddhist literature, the stone inscriptions, copper inscriptions, Chandragupta's iron pillar, the records in various mutts like Sankara mutts. Okay, we have very, very rich library references from which we derived our own history. Okay, no other culture, no other civilization has this rich and diverse references and recordings of their own history. If you go to European history, probably more than 2300, 4000, 3000 BCE, you will probably won't find anything. Indian history references go back, way back into antiquity. And ancient Indians also have the habit of embedding astronomical events in our scriptures, right? We tell the positions of, when Rama was born, we'll say what was the celestial positions of different stars and planets, okay? Or how are the constellations are going around the horizon. So we have, because the motive that the intent that our great historians have is to preserve our history, not as a very dry subject, but as a story. Like they may have embellished with some hyperbole, but it's nevertheless a detailed account of what happened. And as a primary requirement for our Puranas, a Purana is called Purana if it has certain qualities. One of them is about, it has to talk about the creation of the world. So every Purana talks about how the world is created. They don't match each other's description. So the creation is slightly different in each Purana. But it has to be, there has to be some description of how the creation has happened. Then we have to give the lineage of various kings. Okay, that's very important. And approximately the time they ruled, each kingdom ruled. It is our requirement to be called a Purana. So, and some Puranas give a more detailed breakup of the kings, and some probably gives only the great names. Like if you talk about Raghuvansam, we don't talk about all the kings of Ikshvaku. We talked about Ikshvaku, Dilip, Raghu, Dasharatha and Rama. We have talked about Yayati. We talk about a few of them, okay? But not everybody. It doesn't mean that they're all not there, right? So in all these Puranas, there is an overlap of the names. Some of them are outside the envelope, but some of them have given a different time of each kingdoms, but they all kind of give us a ballpark time of what happened when it happened. And each of them have given the astronomical events so that we can corroborate the dates and the times with the astronomical events. And we are of a culture who gives so much importance to time and history and where we are with reference to our past. Most of us, when we do our Sandhya Vandanam in the morning, when you do our Sankalpam, we say Adya Brahmana, Jitiya Pararde, Sweta Varaha Kalpe, Vaivasvata Manvantre, Kali Yuge, Pradama Pade. Then we say which year, Plavanama Mahochere, which month, which season, which month, which day, which tithi, which Gadiya. So we always stick to this timeline. We say, where do we start from? Adya Brahmana, the second half, Depararde, and Svetavaraha Kalpe, Vaivasvata Manvantare. So we have in our habit, in our DNA, to preserve the times of our existence. And we were told that is wrong, right?
Sudesh?
Yes?
So when we have thoroughly followed such chronological thing embedded into our rituals and things like that, right? That when you said 300 BC to 1500 BC, the whoever that William, whoever messed it up for their own reasons. Now, isn't it that the chronology, that astronomical timings versus our ancestors who could incorporate such, in the scripts and practices, wouldn't it come handy to ensure that we'll be able to use that to correct whatever you're thinking the approach would be, or anything you think about it?
And that's what is happening right now. Right now, the research, I have a slide for that, okay? A research that's happening is to take all these things to corroborate, okay? And I'll address that question when I get to that slide, okay, BT?
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
So we have divided our whole time in four. Again, say we, this is before British came, okay? So this is how we have divided our whole time. Okay, it is the very ancient period, which is the creation of the universe, the early humans, and all the way to the 7th Manu, Vaivasvat Manu, okay? Then we call ancient period, the beginning of 7th Manvantara to end of 27th Manvantara. And we call medieval period, the beginning of 28th Manvantara, Vaivasvata Manvantara, which is how we record today, Vaivasvata Manvantare. When we say that, we are saying, okay, and now I am in this Manvantara that belongs to 28th Manu till end of Dwapara Yuga. Okay, then we say Kali Yuga. So we are saying I'm in the Kali Yuga. So up till Dwapara Yuga, we call them medieval time. And for us, the modern time is Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga is at the beginning of, at the Mahabharata ended, that is the beginning of Kali Yuga. Okay, that is beginning of Yudhishthira Yuga. The death of Krishna is Kali Yuga. Okay, so we call the modern period as, when you say we, the Kota Venkatachalam God has called modern period as the Mahabharata War up till the British historians. Then we have the postmodern history, which is from British all the way till today. Okay, I'm not going to cover that at all. Today is not the topic for that. And we have three important anchor points. In our modern period, we have three important anchor points. The Yudhishthira era, which is, we believed, as 3138 BCE. Kali era, death of Lord Krishna, 3102, which also kind of coincides with the death of Yudhishthira and Pandavas, because soon after Krishna died, Pandavas also died. They made then we have they made Parikshit as a king and left. So Saptashri era, that is 3076 BCE. Okay, so these eras, when the British came, when I say British, Sir William Jones and all the historians came to India, they were very well known and they know about these eras and they acknowledged it. It's not that they didn't know about it and went about changing our history. They were, to give them due credit, they were well-read people. When they came to India, they studied under different Pandits. They learned Sanskrit. They understood our books, our references. They did a very meticulous job of reading all the Puranas and properly documenting them. Right? It's very confusing to, each one has a different genealogy. They have done great work to put them together. Of course, they used that for a different end, but they did great work. So they were people like William Jones, Wilson, I put some famous names, Max Muller, who everybody knows. We call them European Oriental scholars. They knew about this, not that they didn't know about it. Then the crucial era that becomes the seeding for this change is Magda Empire. As all you know, those who have read Mahabharata, Magda was a great empire, even during Mahabharata time, ruled by Jarasandha. He was a great king at the time. He was opposing the Hastinapura, Pandavas and everybody, but he fought against Pandavas. So Magda Empire was Jarasandha's empire. When Jarasandha was killed, his son also, Sahadeva, his son also happened to be named Sahadeva. He was also killed in the war. His Sahadeva's son Somadhi has become the king of Magda Empire. They were known as Bharadratha Dynasty. Okay. So in the Magda Empire, we have our Puranas give 22 kings of Bharadratha Dynasty, about 1006 years. So 3138 to 2132 BCE. Then after Bharadratha, we have Prachoda Dynasty, which is about 5 kings, 138 years, goes up to 1994 BCE. Then we have Sisunaga Dynasty, and the Sisunaga Dynasty happened to be a parallel dynasty along when Buddha was born. Okay, it takes us to 1634 BCE. Then we have Nanda Dynasty, 9 kings of Nanda Dynasty, about 100 years. It takes us to 1534. Our generation, we have read Dr. Mudiganda Sivaprasad's novels called Chanakya. We grew up with his novels, and we knew all the stories of how Mahapadmananda tried to kill Chandragupta Maurya, who's his son with a Shudra lady, Mura. Hence he called Maurya, Mura's son, Maurya. And Nanda dynasty ended with the Mahapadmananda. Just coincidentally, just to give some references here, we have I tried to, because Buddha is an important historical figure, I put here, though he's not from Magda Empire. The Sisunaga dynasty, Kshamajit was the 4th king in the Magda Empire. At the time, Suddhodana was the king of Ayodhya, with Nepal as the Ayodhya kingdom, with Nepal as the capital. And Gautama was his son. So Gautama Buddha, as per our history, what we have recorded in Jain and some Buddhist inscriptions before British came, Buddha's birth was 1887 BCE. He became a monk in 1858, and he attained liberation in 1807 BCE. Those are our recorded times at the time. Then the end of Nanda dynasty and the coronation of Chandragupta Maurya, who was a disciple of Chanakya, we all know. 1534 BCE, he ruled Magada with Girivraja. I made it a bold because very important. Girivraja was the capital of Magada and has been his capital of Magada throughout Mauryan Empire. Okay, Girivraja was the only capital of Magada at this time, and which alone is mentioned in Chanakya's Arthashastra also. Okay, there's no mention about what we think as Pataliputra, the current Patna, was also a capital of Magada Empire, but not during Maurya's reign. So Maurya dynasty had 12 kings, about 316 years. It goes from 1534 to 1218 BCE. The numbers, you can read it later on the recording. I can send the presentation, don't have to get too much into this one. Chandragupta Maurya, at the start, his son was Bindusara. His son was Ashoka. Ashoka that we all call Ashoka the Great. And ended with Somasarma. On the death of the king, Somasarma, his commander-in-chief Pushyamitra has took over the thing, and he started the Sunga dynasty. 10 kings, about 300 years. He went on up till about 918 BCE. Then the last king of Sunga dynasty was killed by his minister Vasudeva of Kanva race and it became Kanva dynasty over about 85 years. Ended on 833 BCE. The servant of Susharma, the last king of Sunga dynasty, who was of Andhra family, okay, he murdered Susharma and established Andhra Satavahana dynasty. Okay, so after Kanva dynasty, Andhra Satavahana dynasty started. It was had about when I cut and pasted it, I didn't change the Kanva dynasty here. So it's Andhra dynasty. Had about 32 kings, 506 years of reign, and ended in 327 BCE. The last king of Andhra dynasty was Chandrasri. Again, there's a mistake here. I put 456. And the name Chandrasri is very important. That's why I put in bold. You keep this in mind. Okay, I put Girivaraja in bold, Chandrasri in bold, Chandragupta Maurya, Bindusara. And the fall of Andhra dynasty is the beginning of Gupta dynasty. Chandragupta of the Gupta clan, who was in the court of Chandrasri or Chandrabija, killed Chandrasri and first established the kingdom with Chandrasri's son Puloma, a toddler, ruled for some time, and then killed Puloma and became the king emperor of Magadha. This is when the capital of Magadha moved to Pataliputra, okay, which is present-day Patna. And with the Pataliputra as the capital, Gupta dynasty started around 327 BC. It had 7 kings, and it went on up till 82 BCE. Chandragupta of 1, Samudragupta later took to Buddhism and became Ashoka Aditya. Yeah, it's very important. This name also very important. And he ruled, and after that they have Chandragupta II, I think. Then in 1882, the Vikramaditya, the famous Vikramaditya, Bhatti Vikramarka Vikramaditya of Panva dynasty, conquered Guptas, ruled Magadha with Ujjaini as the capital from 82 BCE with 24 kings, ruled up till 1193 BCE. Okay, this is roughly our history as recorded, as they followed till British came. Okay, right or wrong, that was our history.
But
arrival, of course, I didn't talk about the Islamic invasion happened around 11,000 BCE, and the arrival of British. I didn't talk about that because it's not relevant for our topic today.
so
Arrival of
Sudesh,
yes, Pratham.
in this, if you're covering until British arrived, but we do have on the Deccan side or on the south side, Kakatiyas and the Cholas and the Vijayanagaras, Gajapatis. Where are they? How are they lined up in this timeline?
That I have reserved for another talk. It's a very important topic for even for my interest, because we, unfortunately, our history after independence is always Delhi centric. Okay, we know a great deal about all the emperors of Mughal empires, right? We don't know what was happening at the same time in other parts of the country, right? So that was a topic that very dear to me, and I'm preparing material for that. But it's not relevant for today's topic. Today's topic is how the dates were changed. That's why I didn't mention it here. And again,
Sudesh, one small interruption. This Magadha capital Girivaraja, Pataliputra, now Ujjaini is in Madhya Pradesh. So the capital has been shifted from Pataliputra or Patna to Ujjaini. That is it so?
Yeah. So see, today we have boundaries called Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Bihar, and all, right? Those days, I'm sure that those boundaries were not there, right?
No, boundaries are not there, but there is a distance between Pataliputra to Ujjaini, kada?
Right.
So
like, for example, Suddhodana, the father of Sisunaga, is a king of Ayodhya dynasty, right?
Okay.
But in Nepal as his capital.
Okay. Okay.
So Sudesh, one question, Kondal. So in this whole history, at what point we do have a in-person foreigner account of our history, like some Chinese visiting, etc. When did that start?
Yeah, I'm coming there. Okay. So So in 1783, Sir William Jones, a brilliant scholar, came to India, and the rest became history. Okay, I deliberately made it as history. Okay, and Kondal, I'll cover that. Okay, your topic. So William Jones, I gave a very. You can also Google it. He was born in 1746, died very young, 1794. In this short life, he accomplished a lot and distorted Indian history. He was knighted in 1783. He came to Kolkata in 1783. Founded Asiatic Society of Bengal in 1784. He learned Sanskrit, our Puranas, after he came to US in India. And he postulated a common ancestry of Sanskrit, Latin, and Greek. So that now the present day's vogue and the major fight is about a new language or an ancient language called Proto-Indian, Proto-European, PIE, I think, Proto-Indo-European language, which is an ancestor to Sanskrit, ancestor to Latin, Greek, and all the languages, Sanskrit and all, derived from there. So that was what the present day, the so-called academia is pushing, okay? But he was the one who started the seed of that. And he's the one who started the Aryan invasion theory. And he separated India as Dravidians, who are the original inhabitants, and Aryans who came from West. And he started rewriting Indian history to fit his biblical vision. Now, I will show some quotes to substantiate this statement I made.
Sudesh?
Yes, Jagger.
So now, presume that he changed it. Okay, I mean, like based on we have something and he presented something else. The question is, did he honestly believe that to be the truth, or he did it intentionally?
Like I said, right? Like I said,
distorted it.
Like I said in the previous slide, they knew about our history. It's not that they didn't know about our history. Okay. So, and of course, the whole book of Kota Venkatachalam, I didn't put everything because it's about 300-page book, and for our short presentation, I can't represent everything in the slides. Kota Venkatachalam Garu goes through in great detail why is it intentional. Okay, so if this topic piques your interest, and if you want to continue, I suggest you read the book. And he has given very detailed discussions the other people had with him, his own quotes, his own rationale for doing what he did. Okay,
I'm going to read that book. Yeah. I mean, I'm really surprised. I have reasonable idea about the author. This is the first time I'm even hearing his name. I'm going to read the book.
That's unfortunate. That's really unfortunate. That is the story of our India, right? We don't know about our past.
Yeah.
Even the recent past.
Yeah.
Okay. So the preconceived agenda, I titled as preconceived agenda, which I took it from the Kota Venkatachalam book. When he arrived in India, he had many scholars who taught him Indian history, like Pandit Radhakant, and gave him a detailed account of dynasties of Magda Empire. And even in his earlier essays and articles and book he published, he talked about these three eras: Yudhishthira era, Kali era, and Saptarshi era. But his bias can be found in his own writing. He says, either the first 11 chapters of Genesis of the Old Testament are true, or the whole fabric of our national religion is false, i.e. he's talking about European religion, okay? A conclusion which none of us, I trust, would wish to be drawn. That says, if they say the timelines and history given in Genesis are wrong, then our whole existence is wrong, which we don't want to be true. Then he says, I am obliged, of course, to believe the sanctity of the venerable books of Genesis. So his allegiance, his obligation is for the book of Genesis, the Bible, because he is from that culture. We can't blame him. I adhere to Vedas and he adheres to Genesis. And he thought all these things in the book, I think Kota Venkatachalam Garu gave where he said all these things, okay? Jones thought that it was important that the prehistoric dates of India would be between Bishop Usher's creation date. Many of you know that there was a time, i.e. the British colonial time, where they believe that the whole world was created on 4004 BCE. God created the whole creation in 6 days, and 7th day he rested. Right? That was the belief. Of course, the Reformation happened in Christianity, and modern civilization were able to get away from the concept of 6 days the whole world is created, right? And now we know that the world was not created on 4004 BCE, the 6,000 years back. We know now. But at the time, that was the belief they had, because he was a man of the belief in Bible. He believed that nothing can happen before that. And from a Christian point of view, evangelical Christian point of view, the great floods that Noah's Ark and all, that is the beginning of the creation of the new order in the society, in the world. That is approximated to be around 2350 BCE. So nothing can happen before that. Every history has to fit after 2350 BCE. If I am a very staunch believer of my own scriptures, I would say the same thing, right? I believe in Noah. If I believe in Noah's Ark as a very historical event, not only historical event that happened when they said it happened, which is 2350 BCE, that means that every other event in the history, the recorded event in the history, has to happen after 2350 BCE. Anything before that is not history. They call it prehistory. It's a very, very catchy term, prehistory. So in order to rewrite Indian history, William Jones used just one sheet anchor. Today, we don't do that, right? Today, you cannot disprove anything with only one argument. You have to give multiple arguments from diverse fields to counter an argument. But at the time, he just used only one sheet anchor point. That is the arrival of Greek Emperor Alexander to the western borders of Greater India, and the subsequent writings of Greeks. Even that incident was actually derived from the writings of Greek scribes like Megasthenes. Okay, here is a brief of, most of you know about, I don't know how much of you really know about Alexander. We saw movies and all, but Alexander was a king, Greek emperor. Most of his life is spending invading world kingdoms. However, Alexander's advance was checked in Kafiristan, which is the modern Afghanistan, by Samudragupta. Okay, and note the word Samudragupta. Who is Samudragupta? He is son of Chandragupta of Gupta dynasty. Samudragupta annihilated the entire Greek army, and Alexander the Great was obliged to flee with the surviving remnants of army. On the way home at Babylonia, he died. He never ever crossed the Indus to the east. Okay, that's very important. But the scribes who followed him were paid to glorify him. So they made even his losses into great victories. And some fantasies were the crossing of Indus by Alexander, his defeating the king Porus, establishing Greek kingdom in Punjab. These were all told by these scribes who followed him, because they know that if they talk truth, they will get killed. So these are all the scribes' writings. They were all floating, and that became the history of Greeks. Okay, and subsequent European historians took these accounts of Greek and made Alexander into Alexander the Great. Okay, Alexander was actually not the great, but he became the great. Now comes the character Megasthenes. After Alexander, Seleucus Nicator was his agent, and he became the king. And he was in his court, Megasthenes. He became an ambassador to India in Gupta's empire. Okay, he was ambassador to Gupta's. Megasthenes was in the court of Chandragupta, and he wrote chronicles of his travels, and the book is called Indica. The book itself is lost, but some remnants of that appeared in other books, and the subsequent historians took those things, put together, and gave a rebirth to Indica. Now, this Indica is the most important document the Britishers have. And BT asked the question, right? Were there any foreigners' documentation of what happened? This was the crucial document because they didn't talk about the earlier, all of them. But Indica talks about the ancient India. So people have tried to calculate the date of Mahabharata War based on the writings of writings that Megasthenes did in Indica. Okay, in Indica, he mentions that he has interaction with Chandragupta, and he talked about a king called Xandramus. He was before Chandragupta, and he talked a king called Chandragupta, who is the Chandragupta after Chandragupta. And in all his writings, he mentions Pataliputra, okay, the Magda Empire. Pataliputra is the capital of Magda Empire. And he never ever mentions the word Ashoka. Okay, so it's very important to remember these three names: Chandragupta, Xandramus, and Chandragupta. So William Jones took this Indica and writings of Megasthenes and started reconstructing Indian history, because the Europeans have tremendous respect for Greek thought, great philosophers like Aristotle and all.
Sudesh, on what basis did you say that Alexander was defeated by Samudragupta?
Lot of
Is there any chronology?
lot of Buddhist and Jain inscriptions were there. Okay, that was that is recorded in history. Okay, and it is there in our Kota Venkatachalam book also, where it is given. Okay, and you can read it. And in my subsequent talks, whenever I can go more in detail about that.
Sudesh, just one question. Now this, if the Alexander was defeated by Samudragupta, who is son of Chandragupta, how these Megasthenes were part of the Chandragupta's court?
No, so after Alexander, somebody else became the king of Greeks, right?
Who became?
Seleucus Nicator.
TK.
Right, Seleucus Nicator here. I put it right. Okay, so he was in his court.
No, Chandragupta was the father of Samudragupta, kada?
Yes. But
So, if that means Alexander invaded during Samudragupta's time. I'm not questioning you.
No, it's not that. It's not that father died and son became king. Samudragupta and Chandragupta were together in Andhra dynasty, right? As the commander in chief and the second commander in chief, right? Then when they became king, Samudragupta ruled for some time. Chandragupta ruled for some time, and after his death, Samudragupta became king. So when Alexander came, Samudragupta was not the king of Magda Empire. His father was the king, but Samudragupta went like Sahadeva. Ramayanamlo, Rama Lakshmana Bharata Shatrughnanlo, Shatrugna used to go as the agent of Rama and fight, right? So Samudragupta went there and fought and defeated Alexander. Okay. Then they married into their Greek family. I think Samudragupta's wife is Seleucus' daughter, I think. Okay?
That's right.
So they had established. I think there was a time, even Mahabharata time, is you go defeat an army, a kingdom, and marry into their kingdom, right? So that expand your base. Okay. So Megasthenes was now, once Samudragupta married into Greek family, there was a lot of interaction. Okay, and Megasthenes came to India, and he was in the court of Samudragupta, Chandragupta, right? So anyway,
continue.
William Jones started now. So he has this document. He has a tremendous respect for Greek philosophy, Greek works, and Greek history. And he started reconstructing the Indian history. He said the three first ages of Hindus, i.e., the very ancient, the ancient, and the medieval. Remember I showed you up till Maivasvata Manvantara and Dwapara Yuga, right? He says those things are mythological. They're not fact, right? Whether the mythology was founded on the dark enigma of their astronomers or on the heroic fiction of their poets, but it is not right. It's not history. They may have talked about Ramayana and all the things. From William Jones' point of view, they're all myths. Ramayana never happened, right? Or all the great kingdoms we had in Ashoka kingdom, it never happened. For him, that is all myth. The real, and the fourth one, which we call the modern period, which is from Mahabharata War up till, I think, cannot carry farther back than about 2000 years before Christ, right? Because 2350 is where the flood has happened. So it can't go before that. That was his, I'm quoting here, right? These quotes are available in the book. You can go back and read it. So William Jones's intention is to say, look, nothing can go beyond 2000 BCE. So I need to fit this Indian narrative within 2000 years before Christ. That's what the intent. So with the above intent, he started doing the reconstruction. So what happened? Let's see. So here, if you look at here, the three names I mentioned, right? Very important names: Xandramus, Sandracotus, and Sandraseptus. Look at on the right here, the Gupta dynasty. We have Chandragupta, Samudragupta, and Chandrasri, right? And if you look at it, even we can say, look, Xandramus and Chandrasri phonetically sound same. Sandracotus and Chandragupta of Gupta dynasty, they seem to be same. And Sandraseptus and Samudragupta seem to be same, right? So if I knew these three, I would say, look, Megasthenes must be talking about the Gupta dynasty, right? But what William Jones did, he said, look, Sandracotus is definitely Chandragupta, which is Chandragupta Maurya. So Xandramus must be Mahapadmananda, okay? And Sandraseptus must be Bindusara. Never ever bothered to say, look, how is it possible? Why can't you look at the same thing and say Gupta dynasty? He didn't say. He said, you know what? I am pegging Sandracotus to Chandragupta Maurya, and I'm saying, because Megasthenes said there's a king called Xandramus before Chandragupta, before Sandracotus, I am calling him Mahapadmananda, and Sandraseptus, I'm calling him Bindusara. That's it. This is one single thing, one sheet anchor he did. With this, he took a 327 BCE event and made it equal to an event that happened in 1534 BCE. Okay? With that, 1,207 years were wiped out completely. So then, obviously, he was a great scholar. He did a lot of jugglery to push and pull dates, and some he said myths. Some he said, it's not 1,000 years, it's only 100 years. The reign is not 1,000 years, 100 years. So he did a lot of calculations and tried to now fit everything and all the details. How he did that, how he took certain words and changed, like there were some inscriptions, and he changed the word of inscription and changed the meaning completely. He did all of them. All of them are very detailed, given in the plot in Indian chronology.
So Sudesh, pause 1 second here, a bit complicated. So what he did was something that was in 1534, he moved it up on the timeline and said this happened in 327 BCE?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he said, look, Megasthenes' date is kind of more or less fixed. Okay, that is more recent history.
And he moved everybody in the past into that date and saying, oh, he's talking about these guys. These guys never existed then, but they existed in 327.
Right.
Okay. One question. Pataliputra was named correctly by Megasthenes. Why did he bugger up with the other names? Those Sandracotta.
I'm not Greek. I won't know that. Okay.
He was just equating one to X to Y, right? You
what Mani is saying is, if he can pronounce Pataliputra,
William Jones.
What Mani is saying is, if he can pronounce Pataliputra, why can't he pronounce Chandragupta? Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He wrote correctly now.
Right. So, but I'm not a Greek. I don't know why can't the British call Vijayawada? Why have to call Bejawada? Why is Vijayawada so difficult? I don't know.
Okay, fine.
Visakhapatnam
That's
is
one
what
question that remains.
Yeah. Okay. So
yeah.
Maybe these are his pet names.
Yeah, I think, probably Sudesh, you're right. Like, see, they have their own way of representing humans. Like, they call in their own terms. So that's how it is.
yeah.
Yeah.
But Mani has a valid
Sudesh?
point. We need to investigate and say, maybe I didn't read the whole book and say what is Pataliputra as something else. Okay. But it's also possible that some names are easy for an American tongue to pronounce. Some they can never get. They can say Arnold Schwarzenegger very easily, but they can't say Manik Rao. Okay, for me, Arnold Schwarzenegger is so difficult. Okay.
Anyway, this is our common sense, but I would like to see what the history talks and what our a great man says. Okay.
Okay.
Sudesh,
Yes, Jagan.
the question is, let us say he started with these presumptions, and subsequently, do all our historians have they taken this as a basis and made publications, presuming this to be true?
I'm coming there. Okay, I'm coming there.
Okay.
So with this, Sir William Jones, he established a history of India. Now, he had this Asiatic Society of Bengal, for which the membership to Indians was not given. Okay, till way later, after he died, Indians need to become members of would have become members of the Asiatic Society. But the Asiatic Society was primarily built to discuss these things. And in Kota Venkatachalam books, he talks about a lot of European scholars questioning Sir William Jones. Okay, it's not that everybody is implicit in this whole plot, right? A lot of people questioned him that he can't do like this, and he gives very detailed. So it's a very tedious reading. Those sections are very tedious reading, especially if you're reading on an internet with a PDF document, which is a scan of a PDF document. It's not that easy reading, but he talks about which author, which historian questioned Jones, but how Jones didn't bother to correct it. He talks about all of them. Okay. So now if you look at a snapshot of what the dates are, Mahabharata War, Indian references is 3138 BCE, whereas William Jones brought it to 1931 BCE. Subsequent European scholars brought it down further to about 1000 CE, 1000 BCE, and 1500 BCE. It's all over the place. Okay. Kali era, 3102, 1895, Saptarshi era, you can see all of them. Buddha's birth, 1887, whereas William Jones and subsequent European scholars, if you Google now, you see 557 BCE. Buddha's Nirvana, 477 BCE. Chandragupta Maurya, 1524, 327. Ashoka Maurya, I deliberately put a Maurya, Ashoka Maurya, is 1472 BCE, whereas our present history says 268 BCE. Adi Shankara, we date him to 509 and 477 BCE, whereas the modern most followed date is 788 and 820 CE. Kanchi, Dwaraka, Badari, and Puri, out of 4 main and 5 main mutts we have, 4 of them, Kanchi, Dwaraka, Badari, and eastern one Puri, all have documents of the Shankar Mutt chiefs, right from Shankara till now. They have the names, which year they did, how many years they were the chief, the main pontiff of the Mutt. They have everything. Okay, only one Mutt, Sringeri Mutt, has records stating that 788, 820 BCE. Now, if Sringeri is right, remaining 4 Shankara Mutts are wrong. If the other 4 are wrong, Sringeri is wrong, right? So I have this talk with Brahmasri Samadhan Sharma Sarmagar many times. Even he believes in the antiquity of Shankara, but he says that the last 2, even continue, even right from the present pontiff to last few pontiffs of Sringeri Pit, were outstanding personals. They were great spiritual leaders. So with that great pedigree, nobody wants to question them. So it is so when Samadangaru, people like that, people talk about Shankara Vijayam and all, they somehow don't talk about the historicity. They said, oh, we should know that Shankara was great. Why do we care when was he born? So they didn't want to question it. So whenever I meet a historian who talks about, I say, why can't we get Sringeri correct the records? What people like Samadangaru feels is that they may have lost the records due to some floods and all. They don't have it. And also the 36th pontiff of Sringeri is also called Shankara, Abhinav Shankara. And he also died very young, 33, 34 years old, just like Shankara. And if you look at his contributions, they're all phenomenal, very close to Shankara. So somehow they thought that's how it came. So it's a matter of controversy. Today, Sringeri Mutt is one of the most respected mutt of the 5 mutts we have. So nobody wants to question them. Anyway, Chandragupta Gupta, we say is 327 BC, whereas if you look at Google and all, it's a 335. So what did they push it? They pushed all the way to the Common Era.
But Sudesh, one question though. By the time Ashoka, etc., came, we have stone inscriptions which can be carbonated.
I'll talk about it, okay?
Yeah, okay.
So Alexander arrival, 326 BCE, Samudragupta. Now, this topic is quite controversial. I have a desire to talk about it in a different talk. You must have heard about Sanjeev Sanyal. He spoke about it. He wrote a book about it. Samudragupta was the one who defeated Kalingas. Okay, and he became Buddhist, Ashoka Aditya, and he became Ashoka Aditya. And the Ashoka of the Maurya also had inscriptions, but the iron pillar and all you talk about, right? They're all actually Ashoka Aditya's inscriptions. That's what the book also says. That's what a lot of our modern historians, or i.e., what we call the Indian historians, we are trying to regain our history. We're trying to prove that's what it is. Okay, because I intend to talk about this a bit later. No book of ours till British came, or even after British came, never ever mentions Ashoka the Maurya. Ashoka the Maurya was a villain. He killed all his brothers. When Bindusara died in a war, Ashoka was the 90th son of Bindusara. He had 100 kids. He had one sibling from his same mother, remaining 98 are of different mothers. He killed all 98 of them. They were Hindus and they were Jains. Bindusara became a Jain or Jain sympathizer a lot. So there was tremendous respect for Jains. So in order to curry favor at that time, Ashoka already became a Buddhist. Ashoka never became a Buddhist after war. Okay, Ashoka was a Buddhist before he became a king. So there are a lot of in the history about Ashoka that we didn't know, or we were told something totally differently. And one thing is, Ashoka was never mentioned anywhere in our books. Ashoka the Maurya was almost an insignificant character. Nobody mentions about it. He just happened to be son of Bindusara. And because he killed so many people, he was brutal. He killed Jains and Hindus big time. So he's not regarded as a king to be remembered. Okay, for some reason he was resurrected as Ashoka the Great, which is a fantastic topic for a future discussion. Okay, and I have some theory, not my own theory. I'm not a researcher. I'm not a historian. So I'm reading somebody's books and trying to put them together, which will become a topic for another all the inscriptions you find and everything about Ashoka. What is the confusion of Ashoka? The Yavanas and Greeks, how are they not same, but they are equated? It's a good topic for a separate discussion.
So we made a villain a hero, basically?
Yeah, that's what we'll discuss. That's what in the next topic, if at all we have interest, that will be a very good topic to discuss. Okay?
Sudesh, just 1 minute. Now, is there any dispute about Ashoka's time? Ashoka's...
like I said, Ashoka, the son of Bindusara, was 1472 BCE as per our history, right?
Okay.
Ashoka that we all read, Ashoka the Great, was 268 BCE. So
yes,
There's about 200 years difference between those two.
No, then in that case, just you see, Ashoka's daughter and son went to Sri Lanka. From there, we can corroborate and come to a conclusion.
Right, we can do that. So, people are doing research by reading the Pali inscriptions, right? And Jain inscriptions, Nepali Buddhist inscriptions, Submerged Buddhist inscriptions. Of course, there are some discrepancies. They're trying to put them together and trying to bring a narrative of what exactly happened. Okay.
What exactly happened? Okay.
Like for example, Sri Harsha was actually, as per us, is a BC person. He was now brought into AD. All of them happened. So because the Gupta dynasty was pushed to 335, what William Jones had to do, he could not fit a lot of other people like Vikramaditya. Vikramaditya said, "Oh, it's a myth. He was not there."
Okay.
Because he couldn't fit him, because then he'll become a contemporary of Jones. If he pushes by 1200 years, then Vikramaditya becomes contemporary of Jones, or maybe later. So he couldn't fit Vikramaditya. So he said, "Oh, Vikramaditya is a myth." Okay, it's just a story, nice story of Bhatti Vikramarka. They're all good stories.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Sudesh?
Yeah.
In one of the first or second slide, you mentioned the basically from 82 BC till almost 1200 AD or 1100 AD that we had one kingdom starting with P.
Yeah, Panwar kingdom.
Yeah. During that time, do we have any chronicles?
Yes.
Because during that time, that's when Jesus was there and Muhammad was there.
Right. Yeah, both
were very influential. Do we have any references to them?
I don't know about references to Jesus Christ and Muhammad, but we have very detailed account of what happened in the Vikramaditya Panwar dynasty. Okay, we will obviously read them, because I haven't had time to read so much of information to see what exactly is there. And of course, the main purpose of this book that I'm presenting to you was to prove that these dates are wrong. So what is there in, like, who asked? Somebody asked, right? Somebody asked what happened to Cholas and Pandyas and all the kingdoms of south, right?
Yes.
So even for me, it's very interesting to see parallelly when Magadha was talking about Magadha, or when talking about the Mughals and Islamic invasions, the different great Mughal kings and all. Who are the great kings of South India, right? Who defeated Dutch people, right? Mahendragiri, one king was there, one Kerala king.
Kerala
defeated Dutch people.
The Dutch, yes.
Dutch people never looked back again after that.
Mahendra
Varma, right? Yeah. So that king was never mentioned in our history. We don't even know about it, right? Cholas, they went all the way to Cambodia, right? Pandyas, they built so many things. So for example, what you call Zen Buddhism today in Japan has seeds in India, right? Bodhisattva was a Buddhist monk in Tamil Nadu. He was a brother of a king. He took Patanjali Yoga Sutra and Buddhist meditation and made dhyanam and martial arts very important. He moved to China, he interacted with the Buddhists there. He was thrown out of China. He moved from China to Japan. The dhyanam has become Zen. Okay, the Japanese Zen is actually Bodhisattva's dhyana. Okay, and introduced martial arts. So there's so much of history, the movement from India towards east to Cambodia, Japan, China, and all, and the whole travel. How did Buddhism go to China is a very fantastic topic, right? Because it went so way back. I have no idea what was told by Buddha. So Hung Sang and Fa Hian, they had to come to India to know and collect the actual teachings of Buddha to go back, because they had no scriptures at all. So many things happened. So all of them will become a fantastic read and fantastic eye-openers for us. Okay, hopefully in our series of talks, we will cover all of them.
Yeah. Hey, Sudesh. Hey, fascinating. Really, really nicely done. So I have a question. It's looks like the history is distorted. I mean, more or less, I'm more or less convinced. I'm pretty sure most people are that it is distorted. willfully or by someone's stupidity and incompetence. Let's even assume it's willfully done, like you're presenting very forcefully. So, and most of us intuitively know the answer to this, but what are the implications? Why should we care to correct it? It's important to get history right. So let's say we correct it. What are the implications for us as a nation? And how do we do it in a manner that doesn't divide the country?
So, like I said, the implications of history becomes a very philosophical argument, right? మా తాతలు నేతులు తాగారు మా మూతలు వాసన చూడండి అనే టాపిక్ వస్తుంది. Now, for example, let's say I get up from a slumber. I had no idea who Einstein was and who Newton was, and I happen to be a brilliant guy, and I invent theory of relativity on my own. I'm a brilliant guy. I invent theory of relativity on my own. Will you give me the credit for that? I'm a brilliant. I don't know anything about Einstein. I don't know anything about Newton, and I found the reason for gravity, and I found the theory of relativity, and I said, what you say, great, you are brilliant, but sorry, you won't get the credit. Why is that? Why is that theory of relativity was invented by Einstein was so important for us? How does it matter? What matters is that, yes, there is a theory of relativity. Why does it matter that Einstein had invented it? Or Copernicus has done something else. Galileo has done something else. Why is it important to us? The answer is it is our debt, right? That's what I mentioned in the very beginning of my talk. From our personal growth, spiritual growth, history is totally useless, right? For me, getting out of shackles of bondage and going into liberation is most important in life. And the society is happy today, society is happy in the future is important. So why is history important? That is a philosophical question each one of us has to answer, right? So that is why it's important. I'm sure great minds have given a better answer for why history is important. Now, how we fix it, I'm going to cover the next couple of slides. I'm almost done, okay? I'm almost done with my presentation. Okay, so.
Just 1 minute. Sudesh, it is his topic, LV. What I say that since I don't want to hijack or distort, whatever may be other subjects, engineering, medicine, philosophy, history has got its own importance, and history is very, very important. Simply because we all know that history repeats itself, but there is a continuation. History repeats itself, because man refuses to learn from it. So history is very important. So beyond this, I don't want to tell. It is today's topic. So history is. But you put the right question. I also had got the same doubt. If it got distorted, will it be affecting us? And what will be the implications? And will it any improve that? That we will discuss it.
Right. For example, if somebody says I'm a myth. I don't know how I feel about it. Okay. If somebody says your father was a myth, your grandfather was a myth, I don't know how you feel about it. So these are the questions as a society, as the inheritor of some great intervention somebody did, good or bad, right? We have to answer. So that is that becomes a very emotional and philosophical topic. Okay, we'll park it for it.
And we can give a simple example. You see, when the future generations, if they do not know why this communism failed in 89 or 91, and if they may do, I'm not talking about communism and all, but the point is that the future generations should know how this 1962, 1991, this communism came, this Second World War, the Cold War, and the communism failed, and breakup of the Soviet Union. That are the future they must know. Otherwise, they will be in trouble. So
right.
Now we'll continue.
No, maybe sorry. I probably did not articulate my question correctly. I do understand the importance of history, why it's important to get it.
No, right. I'm not telling that you don't know. Just I'm adding it.
Yeah. No. My question is more. Let's say we get it right and we teach our future generations over the next 50, 100 years, just to correct the facts, if not anything else, right? Then what are the implications? That's what I'm trying to. How is it going to make our country or?
That is my question also. I don't have an answer. That is my question.
Let me stop you here. Okay, we'll let me finish this talk. Okay, 2 more slides, and I think I have some answer for that. And as soon as I finish we talk, we can go there. Okay. So sorry, in a nutshell, how the distortion happened. William Jones completely ignored all the references we had, all the history we had. See, we have a history, right or wrong. You have no right to change it unless you have a very concrete proof. And you can't take one point and try to change it. That's even Kota Venkatachalam's contention is, you changed it because you want to change it. It didn't fit your worldview, number one. He called the Indian scriptures a figment of imagination and myth, but has no problem in believing in the biblical version of the creation at 4004 BCE. What is dear to you? I have something else dear to me. Your belief as 4004 BCE is as good or as bad as my belief in the Ramayana and all of them, right? We both are equal. How do you have a better entitlement of your belief as about my belief? Another argument. Another important thing that people ignored is Saraswati River is become which was widely mentioned in Rigveda as a massive river. There's a glorifying of the river, has become a mythical river. Why? Because in the Prayaga, Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati, Saraswati was not there. So Saraswati was completely taken out of picture and said, oh, Saraswati never existed. It's a mythical river. It is the Hindus' affinity to deify, because Saraswati was the first, if not very first, I think first river to be deified. Okay, then Ganga and all came later, Narmada and came later, but Saraswati was the first river to be deified. I said, oh, Hindus have this penchant for deification of everything, and so Saraswati was made completely mythical. So a lot of antiquity and references of Rigveda, which mentions Saraswati, became null and void because Saraswati was not a river as per William Jones and others. Okay, then he formed the Asiatic Society to fabricate this. This is not my statement, it is given in the book, and not allowed Indians to become members of the club because we couldn't go and counter his argument. And at the time, the entrenchment was so much that nobody had guts to talk about, because you don't have freedom. You don't have the freedom to press. Okay, you can't say anything. Where are the peer-reviewed journals? Okay, same problem we are facing today. Okay, then, but the seeds that Sir William Jones started were completed by Max Muller. Max Muller was the most revered figure in when it comes to India, Rigveda, and Vedic civilization. Max Muller never put foot on Indian soil. In spite of that, he owned up the whole thing. He was such a great figure at the time, nobody would question him. And Max Muller completely swallowed what William Jones said. And actually in the book, there's so many quotations of Max Muller that Kota Venkatachalam Garu says. Once Max Muller put a stamp of authenticity, that's it. Nobody can question it. Now, I don't know how many of you know, we all know Balagangadhar Tilak was a great freedom fighter, but he was a great astronomer too. When he was in jail, he wrote a book called the Orion, the Antiquity of Veda. There, he looked at a lot of astronomical readings that mentioned in the various books and everything, and Ice Ages studies, and quoted Vedic antiquity to be 28,000 years back. And he tried to reach out to Max Muller to get his approval, and Max Muller never bothered to even give him a respect. Okay, so not that some of our people didn't question Max Muller, but it never. Now, I put this last paragraph after our discussion we had subsequently. This is the famous Discovery of India by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, which many people find to be the greatest work of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, our first Prime Minister. Now, it's a fantastic read. All of us should read it. It's also very important to read for a lot of other things which I'm going to cover, hopefully in the future topics. So all of us should read the Discovery of India. Most of us saw Bharat Ek Khoj Mein, the series, and that's not good enough. We have to read this. In that he says, Chandragupta met Alexander himself. He heard of his conquests and glory and was fired by, I'm quoting again, I copied verbatim from the book, fired by the ambition to emulate him. So Chandragupta Maurya, the Chanakya's disciple, met Alexander and he was so enamored by his greatness that he wanted to emulate him. Okay, and Chandragupta and Chanakya watched and prepared themselves. They watched how Alexander operated, and Nehru says, Nehru says, they hatched great and ambitious schemes and waited for the opportunity to realize them, i.e., defeat Mahabharata. This is what Pandit Nehru wrote in 1942. Even though we have questioned, by then we already questioned Sir William Jones, we already questioned the antiquity of what they said. Pandit Nehru still wrote this. Okay. Now, Kota Venkatachalam didn't just stop here. He went and very detailed. If you read his book, he went and looked at the astronomical data in Vedas and Mahabharata and other inscriptions, other literature like Surya Siddhanta, Bhaskaracharya's Lilavati, to corroborate the dates. It's not just, okay, I read Puranas, hence that's what it is. He went to great detail, because once you are defined in somebody else's view, very difficult to redefine yourself. So you have to point various angles. He looked at the epigraphical analysis of inscriptions in Keravala, Hamtiguppa, and Ayohole inscriptions and corroborated them. The book is written in 1953, but by then the academia is already entrenched with the European idea of India, or invasion theory, Proto-Indian language model, etc. Hence did not give any importance to his work. So much so that even today we don't know about him. In total, he wrote 24 books. And another Telugu person, Vedveer Arya, you should Google him and you should find YouTube. He has done fantastic work. One of the few great researchers who is working and contributing to this whole antiquity of India is Vedveer Arya. He took the work and refined it, added some, clarified the Saka system, and removed the confusion we had, and he wrote a very book. Okay. Now, like I said, once somebody defines you, just using one sheet anchor point, to counter that, we cannot use only one sheet anchor point. We have now, that's what the struggle today. Struggle today is you say something in, oh, I read these scriptures wrong. No, what about Genesis? What about archaeology? What about climatology? So there are so many subjects that people are doing research and trying to say, look, I am trying to find astronomy and trying to set the data of Mahabharata. By the way, let me go look at the hydrology, the Saraswati River, okay, or oceanology, or seismology, or archaeology, epigraphy, paleontology, agriculture, all of them, to say what I say is correct. So it becomes very difficult to redefine yourself. But people are doing the tremendous amount of research done by people like you and me, but who have more passion than us. They are not talking somebody else's work. They are doing their own work. They are working on each one of these bubbles to get the argument correct. Now, what happened since then? Okay, archaeological things. Now, when Jones was there, Harappa Mohenjo-daro was not there. Harappa Mohenjo-daro was discovered in 1920, and now they dated to 3300 BCE. So the 2000 BCE gone, right? Saraswati is no longer a mythical river. We have now research, and we have completely laid the dry bed path of Saraswati. How it was once upon a time going in Run of Kutch and moved further to Bikaner, and how it became dry, what happened to it. Tremendous amount of research is being done. Now Saraswati was great river in 100,000 BCE to 20,000 BCE, and later Ice Age came. The water became froze into glacials. The water started becoming less. Again, the monsoons came. Again became around 9,000 to 4,500 BCE. It again slightly bigger perennial river. Then subsequently it dried up. When Yamuna was a tributary to Saraswati, and Satluj was also, Shatadru was also a tributary to Saraswati. When they both separated and joined, Satluj joined the Indus and Yamuna joined Ganga, and water dried up to Saraswati, and how Saraswati completely dried up. So that was also now a new research being done. And once the antiquity of Saraswati and the fact of Saraswati is established, the Rigvedic Rishis hymns that extol Saraswati are no longer myths, they are real. Hence, it's a great challenge to Aryan invasion theory. The sites of Saraswati Basin excavated along the Saraswati River all the way to Gujarat are much bigger in size, 1.7 times larger than Harappan sites. That shows that the continuity of culture right from Balochistan to Rajasthan. Discovery of submerged city of Varavati, a city in Gulf of Cambay, a city prior to Krishna's Dwaraka, dated now to be around 11,000 BCE, because at the time the sea levels were 100 to 200 meters below the current sea levels. And there was a city there, and it flourished around 11,000 BCE, and around 9,000 BCE it's submerged. And it's all research done. You can go and find it out. Very important, now it's almost a fact, the Toba volcano eruption in Sumatra of Indonesia, it erupted 75,000 years ago. You can Google it again, and covered much of central and southern Indian subcontinent. Recent excavations from Jwalapuram and Kurnool found civilization under the ash. That shows that there was some sort of civilization in southern India in 75,000 BCE. Okay. Archaeological findings of early agriculture on the banks of Lahore Deva Lake in eastern UP have been carbon dated to be around 13,000 BCE to 70,000 BCE. Okay. Submerged structure in Pumpahar in Tamil Nadu has been dated to be 9,500 BCE. The archaeological site in Birana near Hisar, 7,500 BCE. Mehergarh farming site near Pakistan, 7,000 BCE. Famous Rocky Garh site in Haryana, 6,500 BCE. Now, we now have the technology, a lot of work has been done. Now we can see that within the subcontinent of India, we found civilizations going back to 14,000, 12,000 BC. Okay. So, and I haven't put a slide because I'm not in a solid grounds there about genetics. Okay. A lot of work is done in genetics. We found that the R1N1 haplogroup is predominant in India. And it is more or less right from Iran to all the way to Tamil Nadu. We are made up of kind of one gene pool. There are most diversity in the gene pool. And it's also found in Germany, Poland, everything. So it's possible that the gene came from Germany to India, Poland, India, or even from India to, so the gene diversity, gene pool doesn't say the direction of it. Direction is a speculation. So we have to somehow corroborate the directionalness of the genes by some other means. Gene says, okay, this country had these genes, this country had genes. That means that the gene pool of India, gene pool of Poland, they're all common genes. Who went from where, we can't tell, but a lot of research has been done. And we hope that, because of the pool diversity and everything, it comes to know that the genes were actually originated in India. And already you see a lot of streams of arguments about out of India theory. So actually, it went from India to outside. Okay. Similarly, astronomical. Ramayana has 100 astronomical events. Mahabharata has about 300 astronomical events embedded. That corroborates to a lot of antiquity. There was a time where we used to measure east by a different measure. Today, our east is when sun rises. But for people who are doing yajna, it needs to be more accurate than sun rises. They can't take, because sun actually moves a few degrees, right? The east is not exactly when sun rises. So they needed a distant object as a pivot, as an anchor point. So there were some mentions about Kritika, which is paradise, as the eastern star. So there were hymns in Satapada Brahmana that says, look at the eastern star Kritika and orient your Yajna towards that, like that. That means that there was a time where Kritika or paradise was rising in the east. And people have done research using software, and it is around 24,000, 28,000 BCE, where paradise was rising there. We have memory of Vegas, Abhijit, as the pole star. And we have memory in Mahabharata Markandeya Samvada. There's a discussion about how Abhijit was dropping off, and we can't use it as anymore as important pole star, because if we use pole star for navigation. If it drops down, we can't use it anymore. How do we have to make it somebody Kritika or somebody else as the pole star? There was discussion. And that means that we have memory that talks about Abhijit as a pole star, which is 20 with a persistent equinox 26,000 BCE, and Kritika becoming a pole star is about 14,000 BCE to 13,000 BCE. We have document either they had a software or fantastic mind to retrofit it, or they actually observe it. Okay, this is what we have to decide. So the tremendous astronomical work is being done, and tremendous genetic work is being done, and a lot of people are doing the work. So we need to look at them. So not only Kota work is 1953. We should have started then, but we did not. Right now, if you are in this field, you get exposed to all these things, right? You can read it, so many things are done. So we need to now decide, okay, now we know that the world was not created in 4004 BCE, so there's no reason to stick to William Jones's premise, and his sheet anchor is not proven correctly. So let us take back. It will not be 100% accurate. Let us take back our narrative and refine it. That will be our argument. Okay, every sheet anchor point needs, in conclusion, every sheet anchor point needs internal and independent evidence. One sheet anchor that William Jones used, i.e. mapping of Santoportus Chandragupta Maurya, does not have that. William Jones' rejection of Indian Puranas as mythical and yet believe in biblical version shows the bias. Jones' various writings shows the bias. His bias not only distorted chronology of Indian history, but brought forth the divisive concept of Aryan and Dravidian and the two distinctive groups of India, Aryans as upper caste and Dravidians as lower caste. And we are still reaping the bad seeds that was sown. Today, the major headache India has, one of the questions that LV asked, how can it impact us? And all this discussion started with that YouTube video somebody sent about Subramanian Swami's talk, that we are one gene pool. We have to take this and say, look, our caste system should not be discriminatory. Okay, we are not different people. That's one of the impact that we should bring forward. Then the current research in anthropology, archaeology, and many fields put the creation of the universe of billions of years. So William Jones' whole 4004 BC is no longer useful. It's proven that Indian antiquities indeed goes back to thousands of years. It's time to reset Indian history back to what was before William Jones' arrival to India and make it official. But the present mainstream academia will not make the change easy. That I found this quotation very good. I don't know how many of you know Nassim Nicholas Taib is an economist of Palestine origin. Academia is a knowledge that academia is to knowledge what prostitution is to love. Close enough on the surface, but for non-sucker, not exactly the same thing. Okay, so he's kind of very critical about academia, the mainstream academia, and we should not sing the common consensus. Our scientific consensus is a bad word because everybody is in a cabal, and they say, oh, the scientific consensus is that as per gene theory they came from outside, so we should not take that. Now that concludes my topic for today, and I have passion for a lot of other topics. The current research done in dating of Ramayana, Mahabharata with diverging points and converging data points, that is a topic that I'm preparing for myself. Buddha and spread of Buddhism, the one question that I think Ravi Shankar somebody asked. Age of Adi Shankara, the journey of river Saraswati. Is Ashoka really great? Okay. It is a very controversial topic because now that brings a real plot that happened after independence, right? So that is very emotional to a lot of us. We have our own political affiliations. So there the subjectivity goes out of the objectivity goes out of the window. It becomes very subjective, but it's an interesting topic that we can talk. The complete history of various empires. Somebody asked, right, what happened to southern kingdoms? I would like to see who are doing what from all the way from Mauryas to independence. Okay, not just Mauryas, not just Guptas. Who are they? I want to see pictorially that one. A book called Beautiful Tree. All of you should read that. It is Dharmapal's phenomenal work, which is Dharmapal was Mahatma Gandhi's a contemporary. You worked with him. He wrote a great book about Indian education system on the pre-independent India, a fantastic eye-opener. Everybody should read it. And I have talked about it in few forums before. I want to write about caste. For me, it's a very dear subject. I am a so-called forward caste person. If my ancestors have discriminated somebody, I should own it up. And also I take the fact that most of the reformers are also Brahmins, right? So, and I know that in the system, in the Indian system itself, the discrimination is not given at all. So I want to write the history of caste, who, when, what time it happened, right? Like I said in somebody else, every beautiful city will have gutters. If you focus on gutters, everything looks bad. So we may have human being is human being. We may have gutters in the society, sewage in the society. If that's what it is, we have to fix it. And that's one topic I am very much interested. And the framework of Hinduism and its relevance for the universal peace and brotherhood is a topic very dear to me. Shad Darsanas and Shad Matas is a foundation of our Indian religiosity established by Shankaracharya. I would like to talk about it. The comparative religions. What is there in different religions we have 13, 14 major religions. What is there in all of them? So these are all the topics that are dear to me. If we have opportunity and interest, we can talk about in the future. And thanks a lot for your patiently hearing me for the almost hour and a half, hour 45 minutes. And thank you.
Hey, before we wind up, Sudesh, I mean, bottom of the heart, I wanted to thank you because not only the subject you've chosen is such a critical one. Mostly when we say it's philosophical, it's easy to just ignore or to say that there's little anybody can personally connect. But I think deep down inside, we all have that hidden thing in terms of how we are keen to know not only our history. Basically, people reach out where my ancestors came from, all that, but it's also similar lines. But making it short, you've done a fantastic job, and I continue to see that there's a lot of interest, not only for me, for others, because this is such a dry subject, but getting handily stuff, I don't think an average person could really do that amount of research and all that. So hats off to you. You've done a fantastic job, and I hope other subjects you'll pursue and share with us. And we are so blessed to have you as a friend and as someone who cares about these things.
Thank you, Bidi. See, for me,
very well said, Bidi.
One point I want to make is, especially now, it is a very controversial topic. The moment you talk about India, it somehow assumes that we are talking about Hindus. Okay? We are talking about India, period. We are talking about the people who lived or living in that geographical border. They happen to be, for a predominant time, happen to be belonging to a so-called worldview called Hinduism or Sanatana Dharma. But it's not about Hindus. It's about Indians. Almost 99% of non-Hindus in India today, if you go back to a few generations, they trace back to Hinduism, right? Their ancestors are Hindus. Majority. I'm sure there are few who have direct lineage to the invading Turks and invading Mughals and Mongols. But majority of Christians and Indians today, religion is a personal choice for our own self-growth. But our antiquity, our legacy, our history is common to us. So this is like as soon as you saw the word plot, the discussion happened. I was talking about Modi government, okay, or modern architects of independence. No, it is our history. It's not about one political viewpoint against another political viewpoint. It is about our history. We are all Indians. We all have common ancestry. We all have the common heritage, and we have to acknowledge it. If we made mistakes, we have to acknowledge it. If we did great things, we have to acknowledge it. We shouldn't sit on the laurels of what our past, but we have to use it.
But Sudesh, I agree with all this, but only worry I have, the way you said it, this whole thing will be spun into a nationalistic view, or again, BJP will be brought into this. this is should be neutral, right? The
Should be
academic
neutral.
institute should correct it like any other research. If the facts are speaking differently,
Right.
they have an obligation to correct the records.
Right. So
So
if I put the same scrutiny, the slide I showed you here, right?
Yeah.
If you put this slide, this kind of scrutiny on the birth of Jesus Christ, okay?
Yeah.
Even one astronomical event mentioned in the Bible, the Star of Bethlehem, we can't pinpoint. So if I go and say, look, I'm not denying the historicity of Jesus Christ, but I'm questioning the date of it, because the whole world sea tanker date is the birth of Christ, 0 AD, right? If I put this kind of scrutiny on each one of them, they don't stand a chance, okay? Today, we are trying to probe, put holes into our own narrative of the antiquity of India on each one of these bubbles. And each one of them bubbles are
And
pointing.
without any question, India should write its own history. We
Right.
don't need
So-
somebody else to come and define India's history, right?
Right.
That's where
So-
it should start first. So
Right. So that's where it should start. Okay. But like I said, we should not somehow take it as, oh, the moment I praise India or I go and talk about antiquity India and I'm talking about the greatness of Hindus. That is not the intent. It so happened, right?
it's almost like it's a sin
It's
to
like
be
this.
proud. It's
It's like
sin to
this.
be proud.
Every
Something like-
modern scientist happened to be Christian. Not every majority of them think. I say, oh, if I say greatness about science, I am glorifying Christianity. We'll never ever say that. We'll never say that, right? We give due respect to the greatness of each one of them. We don't even consider the religion.
But I think we are at a
What
fault
way
to some extent
Aryabhatta,
because
what way Bhaskaracharya, what way Vasishtha, Valmiki, Vishwamitra, what way they're different?
No, I think the problem is we tend to mix up. Sometimes our message is not clear. And unfortunately, whosoever is spearheading these arguments do have that kind of an inclination to mix up
Right.
religion with these kind of things which are religion neutral. So that's where I think we have to be careful as a country too, that we have to segregate those and not mix up those. Otherwise, the argument becomes very clouded. Immediately, Modi comes into picture. What? He's a brand ambassador for everything.
Right.
So yeah,
So-
that's where the whole problem.
No, can't leave about that. Sudesh, it was wonderful presentation actually. You have brought so many historical evidences into your presentation. So it has to be actually argued in depth. But my question is, all these things have been done long back, not today. So it is only you are presenting it to us today. But these have been done over the years, decades back, or even centuries back. So why this history is not being corrected, or nobody has done any attempt so far by the governments or the historians, who are called the academia you were mentioning, no? And no efforts have been made in correcting it. What is the reason for this?
That is a discussion. If you look at if you get into the field of this inquiry, Ravi, it is a major roadblock because most of the great research, for example, all the guys who are doing the research are somebody like you and me, right? Now, I'm not an historian, neither you're not an historian. I may have done great work, but if I say something, somebody says, oh, has it been peer reviewed? Now, my peers are engineers and programmers, right? Now, I'm not an historian. So for me, the obstacle to get peer reviewed, because I don't have any authenticity as a degree to do this. So it is an uphill task. Like I said, once somebody defines you, even in our day-to-day life, in office, somebody defines you, you don't stop it immediately, you let it simmer, it becomes impossible to redefine yourself. The perceptions are difficult to change. Now, how we do this? And today, for example, let's say any government tries to change the Indian history and put these topics in our curriculum, there will be hue and cry. Among the Hindu phobia is among Hindus only. And we have seen our recent postings, right? When the moment is applaud, oh, Modi is not doing anything great on the ground. No, that's not the point. Forget about Modi, forget about anybody else. But the obstacles, we only put our obstacles. Somehow we have the fascination for hearing about us from others, not from ours. That is somehow a disease we have inherited. I don't know how it goes. So
correctly said.
I don't know the answer to the question how to make this mainstream. So my statement is, look, forget about it, right or wrong. You tell your kids this is right.
No, basically, this tends to it goes back to Elvis' question, why it is important. Yeah, correcting the base is always important, whether it takes 10 years, 100 years, or 1,000 years. Correcting the base, about especially civilizations like India, where we have history, and then, correcting that base is very important for the future. We don't know how long the mankind will be there, but as long as the mankind is there, we should correct the history.
Right. And I agree. So, for example, we have this, the Indians have this thing, instead of showing enormous amount of data, if you can pronounce Pataliputra, why couldn't you have done the Xandramus? Right? Yeah. That is the Ramdhan Veshana we are bound to, we are like made to have, right? We have to accept it first. Okay? We have to accept it among ourselves, forget about government. This is our history. They may be out of 1,000 points, 1 or 2 may be not right, but 998 points are right. Hence, I'm going to believe in this. So this is what I'm going to talk. When I'm talking about to others, I'm going to say, when somebody says, look, your Mahabharata happened in 1000 BC, I'm going to say, no, it happened whenever it happened, right? We go and talk about it. We tell our kids, this is our history. We talk to our Chinmaya missions, our Sankar Mats, our Sai Baba educational things, Bala Vigyans. We say, look, we believe this is our history. Teach us. Forget about government. Then automatically the pressure comes on government to change it.
No, I think we should challenge the government because
we should. Parallelly, we should challenge the government. We should have an initiative to go and challenge them.
Yeah.
Force them to say this. But we shouldn't only do one and not stop. We should also, day-to-day life, when you talk to others, first of all, we should be aware of these things. I'm surprised, even I am surprised that after coming to USA, after turning 50 years, I'm learning about this. I should have known this when I'm studying my school in elementary and middle school and high school. I should know about this. Okay, let me decide we are great or bad.
After 70 years, this becomes revolutionary.
That's what I'm saying. After a couple of, if we start now, it will take maybe a couple of decades, and then people will change.
You teach, for example, we have missed the complete boat of educating our kids.
Right.
Okay, but now we have an opportunity to educate our grandchildren. Okay, so let us correct the mistakes we made in not educating our kids because we are ignorant. Let us see if we can educate our grandkids. Okay, what happened in 300-400 years cannot be fixed in a couple of decades. It will take a lot of time. Yep. But the first thing is we should accept it. We should say, oh, you know what? I think Jones is right. Why would they say wrong? What intention they have to say wrong? All the Max Muller, why would they say wrong? I am going to say that as my primary argument. Everything else, you have the burden of proof. We should say, no, I am going to accept this. Everything else, you have the burden of proof.
Majority would be kya farak padega.
Right. Yeah. That is, of course, we say majority's purpose is to keep the continuity going on.
But Sudesh, whatever you have been mentioning these points, are there in Venkatachalam's book?
Most of my topics here, till this slide.
Okay.
Till this slide is there in the book.
So why can't we attempt to print that book again?
Please, you can just go on Google the
not Google it out. Not Google it out. Again, freshly print it, publish it now.
It's published. I don't know if you missed it or not. His kid.
No, I have seen that just now. Somebody has put it in the link and then I downloaded also.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that book is a PDF copy which is printed. So latest people, it cannot be circulated like a book like printed book.
I would suggest you spend 100 rupees. I think it's not more than that, and buy from the publishers.
We will.
So okay, publisher print is available.
Yeah. Like I said, his grandkids have published all his books again.
It's in Amazon. It's in Amazon.
Yeah.
And it is 1700 rupees after a 60% discount.
Yeah. So it's nothing. Okay. And it also helps them. I know them because their granddaughter lives in Houston, and they're having tough time raising funds to publish all his 24 volumes. Okay. So Just go buy and gift it. Not only buy for you, buy 10 copies and give to your friends.
So, Sudesh, anybody is fighting these in academic institutes or in court?
A lot of people. A lot of people. Like I said,
contribute in any way?
Once you go into this area, like anything else, like if you go into the area of financing and investment, you will find its own resources, right? Once you go into the area, you'll see that the lot of work has been done in this area.
How can we help? How can we?
Like I'm doing, present it. Okay, write articles.
No, but more concrete steps like challenging universities, asking them to conduct seminars.
You can write letters to them. It is very quite difficult to challenge them. Okay, but you can nothing harm in.
No, especially if you have scientific facts, right? Especially if you have carbon dating and things like that, you can right away challenge those.
Most of us, we're not the original thinkers, right? We're not original researchers. We don't have time to go to each of the sites.
No, but we will support somebody who is doing that fight.
Right. So if you, for example, Nilesh Oak is doing tremendous amount of work. Okay, I'm throwing these names so you can Google them, right? Nilkant Oak, Vedveer Arya, Michel Danino, okay, Sanjeev Sanyal, okay, lot of people. So all of them are doing great work. Conrad Ernst, okay, a lot of Indians.
Sudesh. One suggestion is on the last slide, you put those references and names who are in this space and then circulate the PPT.
Yeah, please send us.
I will add another slide where who are the players in this research area, and you guys can follow. Nowadays, knowledge is easy. You go YouTube, everybody has talked to YouTube. All my work is done by listening to books like this, reading books. Once I start reading one, I'll find a reference to another one. I'll go take that one. So once you go into this field and you have passion, and it's important that we do crowdsourcing because one individual can't do, right? So we can take, each one of us can take a thread and do some work and pull together and publish it. So we can do like this, right? And we can talk to people like us, right? Right now, some 30-40 people joined today. Maybe you should see, you guys take this one, internalize it, and talk to your own friends, another 30-40 people. Okay. At our level, I think this is good enough. Okay. If we can convince 1,000 people, and 1,000 people convince another 1,000 people, good enough.
So Sudesh, one question, right? Just a little segue from that. So you have mentioned quite a few people who do parallelly research and going through, historians, and people are more passionate. But one question I have is, the whole conversation is centered around the Williams take on it in terms of the Genesis timing, right? It is the core of where we are rebuilding, reconstructing the motives behind and how that flow, right? So the others who are simultaneously doing research, is that again found the same reason why we are, or is there anything else they found other than
they found a lot of
causes? Huh?
No, they found, see, what happens is, once a narrative becomes popular, it is repeated 1,000 times.
True.
Okay. For example, if you go and look at the books, there are about 200 to 300 authors in various European and Indian media about Aryan invasion theory. Okay. We now know for sure that nobody invaded. So they themselves changed it to Aryan migration theory, right? But the lie called Aryan invasion theory, in all these 300 authors, they talk the same lie with one voice. Okay. Now, with so many people talking, it becomes consensus. Okay. You know in your guts it's not right. It's impossible to prove it's not right. Okay, because see, people like us, we are not researchers. So for us, it is an emotional aspect. It is not really, we know that it's not right, but we can't prove you are not right. Okay. But the people have done it, but it is difficult to break the hold on academia. Even in India, right? Even in India, it's impossible to change this because it is an entrenched with this so-called, now here is where it gets into very hot topic about liberals and communists and everything, which I don't want to go there at this time. But the academia is in control of a different argument. People may go different argument. So how do you break that? So these are all practical problems we have. If it is easy, it would have been done long time back. It should have done when we got independence. That is the right time to say, look, I am resetting, I am removing the colonial mindset on August 1947. From now onwards, India takes back its narrative. Should have done in 1947. Why we didn't do that? Was it intentional? Was it postponing to a different day because there are other pressing events like poverty and other things? These are all we need to investigate. Why was it done? Why is it parallelly, while improving the economy, while improving the government, while improving the governance, why can't we also fix the education system? When I talk about Dharmapal's beautiful tree, I made the talk few times before. I have mentioned all those things before. Okay, how the education system, even till 1920, the Indian education system was far superior, far superior. Documented, not by us, by the western, the collectors, i.e. the district heads of in British India. They have done the survey, they have collected the raw data, they published it. That was what Dharmapal has published in the book called The Beautiful Tree. He didn't write from his own imagination. He painstakingly went through all the records that the British era collectors did in Madras Presidency, Mysore Presidency, Patiala Presidency, Punjab Presidency, Bengal Presidency. He took them, he sifted through them and said, look, this is what Indians were educating in the curriculum. And at that time, the British curriculum was very bad. So he proved everything. So we don't know that, right? We were not told about it. We don't know about that, but it's all out there. If you are doing research, it's all out there. Take it up, internalize it, get to know it, become a foot soldier, and at least influence one more person. Tell your kids, if not anybody else, tell your kids, If you can do that, I think we have done our job.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's almost 12 o'clock now.
Yeah.
So thank you, everybody. It was a fantastic opportunity to talk to all of you, my great dear friends. I see that some other people joined who are not part of our group. I see some of my father-in-laws joined too. Yes, very good. My father-in-law from my wife's father side, and I just saw my her uncle also joined. So thank you very much, all of you. Yeah. And I'm sure somebody else joined. I'm not seeing the list. So thank you. With this, I think we conclude today's topic.
Sudesh, one point. Is there any book or any published information contradicting the William Jones history, either by research?
Yeah. Like I said, Vedveer Arya. Okay.
Okay.
A lot of people done it. So you need to go take the thread, pull the thread. The whole web will come out. Okay. So, either one book, I don't know. Right? The subject matter is so big. Because now we are trying to disprove what is wrong, it becomes very technical and very dry. Oh my God, reading this book was so difficult. Try to put the slides, even the slides are very dry.
One should have interest in that.
Yeah, no, reading I read Vedveer Arya's book, and it spins. It totally went totally confused, right? It was so, the numbers are so puzzling, the concepts are so puzzling. Same, even Kota Venkatachalam's book is not easy read. It is you need that appetite to say, no, I'll let me pay respect. Okay, Shraddhaya, Pariprashnena, Sevaya, then Shraddhavan Labate Jnanam. Right?
I don't understand anything, Sudesh. I respect what you say.
What is that?
I didn't understand one word you said.
What I said, Shraddhavan Labate Jnanam. If you have the Shraddha, what is Shraddha? Shraddha is, at the beginning, it's faith. I respect you, hence I take what you say is right.
Right.
Shraddha has a multi-level, multi-layers. Shraddha is the respect for your scriptures, respect for your teacher, right? Then you have to not respect for teacher. Scriptures doesn't mean you do puja to your books. You have to read them. Swadhyaya pravachanech na pramaditavyam. This is the convocation address that was given in Taittiriya Upanishad. Guys, you're leaving the university. Don't stop self-study. Okay, just because you finish your education, don't stop self-study. That was a clarion call given by the deans and the vice chancellors of the ancient universities to the students in the convocation. Say, Swadhyaya pravachanech na pramaditavyam. Never ever stop reading your scriptures. Okay, when you do that, that is the beginning of your downfall. And we did that. We didn't read any of our books. We are happy knowing Ramayana through N.T. Ramarao movies. When none of us, when we were 55, 60 years old, none of us read Valmiki Ramayana once. None of us read Mahabharata once from the source, Bhagavata once from the source. When you do that, as it cautioned by the great deans and vice chancellors of Vedic universities, there will be a downfall. Anyway, now the talk is becoming preachy.
The message, right? Message is correct, but the maybe majority of the people in the audience don't understand Sanskrit, and thereby they're missing the point. I think they have to know, probably convert it to English to understand. That's
the people are returning.
See, this is actual. I mean, the root causes behind how we are not we lack that kind of bridge to the common person didn't understand a lot of things. Like you go to temple, you have these Sanskrit things. You've just been impressed with all these hymns and other things. But basically, I think there was some I think drawback in a way. It's been just propagated and things like that. I mean, looking from my perspective, but
that's what Sudesh was mentioning actually. All these books which were in Sanskrit, they should have been translated. Even now they are available. If you take Arya Mission or any Chinmaya, various books have been written in English. The same Sanskrit.
And we cannot say they were not. There are people like Jail and Shastri who translated Upanishads. So there
the approach is there, but they are accessible. We are not accessing them because our interests are different.
See, for example, I always say this to a lot of people. We all have reference to Vishnu Sahasranamam, right? We read it so many times. We never ever bother to know the meaning of it, which is fine, right? But
Samavedangaru has written word by word translation.
That's fine. What I'm saying is, my point I'm trying to make is, because people like us who, without reading, without trying to know the meaning, with pure respect and devotion, read it for thousands of years and keep it alive, the book is available today for a great man to come forward and decipher it. Okay? Without us, the common man who blindly read these books as very devotional subjects, though Vishnu Sahasranamam is not a devotional subject at all. If you actually decipher it and encode it, it has tremendous cosmological and philosophical import. But we never cared. We don't even want to bother about it. We said, oh, no, I'm going to read it every day, every week, or every year. We kept it alive. If we didn't do that, the book Vishnu Sahasranamam would have been available today for a great scientist to come and make us know about it. So we should have the respect and keep it going at a minimum. That's the minimum thing we should do. Some of us who have more passion can now try to understand it. Some of us who have even more passion try to disseminate it. Some of us even more passion try to write about it and talk about it and write commentaries about it. So these are all, we should at least at a minimum, all of us should do the Swadhyaya. That includes simply reading it. Forget about understanding it. Anyway.
But Sudesh, honestly, what I think is even our nation is going through the same Maslow's needs of hierarchy. Our country was too busy with its own hunger, security needs. I think this is the time this nation is now looking for self-esteem. And then sure, after 10, 15 years, I think it could be at a different place, hopefully.
This is called Copernicus effect. Once he proposed the theory, everybody denied it because there was a previously well-established theory that Earth was in the center of the universe. But it took time to propagate these new theories. So it takes probably a couple of decades.
Thanks, Sudesh. Very
Sudesh,
informative and eye-opening for
Yeah.
me. I
So
didn't know
thanks
that the
for-
8,000 years of history. I never knew that.
So Suresh, thanks for your passion. We came to know that we missed it 1,200 years. So we'll
We'll catch up.
so we'll figure out, how to adjust.
That's a lot of time to cover.
A lot of catch up to do.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Keep
Thank
doing
you.
this,
Thanks, Sudesh.
Thank you.
Enjoyed it.
Okay,
Take
thank you,
care, guys.
Sudesh. Thank
Nice
you
seeing
very
you
much.
all again. Thank you. Have a good
Thanks, Ram.
weekend, and we'll talk again.
You too.
Sudesh,
Bye.
you said a lot of topics for future, and definitely they're very, very, very interesting to talk more about it. So if you are ready, we would like to listen
Yeah.
to more from
If
you.
anybody wants this PowerPoint presentation, I can circulate it to you guys. Okay.
Please send it to us.
Send it over. Send it over, and once recorded thing, share the link somewhere. You could, right? All right.
I will.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye, guys.
Have a rest of the weekend. Good.
Sudesh, all the best for next time.
We will see. Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye.